Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Richard and welcome back to another weekly watch list video sponsored by MarketSmith. And today we'll be going through my focus list for this upcoming trading week and talking about both their fundamentals as well as their technical setups. And a lot of stocks have already moved quite a bit and definitely moved late last week. But on this list are kind of names that are either pretty special or could be actionable, maybe not tomorrow, but over the next few days. So they're pretty close to pivots, or if they do a constructive pullback on lighter volume, that's where you want to kind of jump in and look for an entry point. So we'll go through all these different stocks, but first I do want to quickly just bring up the S&P 500 in case you didn't watch my stock market outlook video, and remind you guys that we are at a pretty key spot right near the 200-day moving average, as well as kind of some confluence with this downward trend line. So we could expect some volatility, so just be aware of that. And on days that are pretty negative when it comes to the indexes, pay attention to your watch list and your stocks themselves and what's kind of holding up really well, because what's being supported on days like that when everything is red are the names that institutions really want to accumulate. So make sure you keep an eye out, because that can help kind of point you towards those different leaders. So let's dive right in and start with ARI. This, of course, is a solar name. This has been a potential leadership group. And this name has been acting pretty well. We're above a rising 21 EMA. We did pull back into that last week, but rebounded strongly off of that on Friday after undercutting it. And we had a really nice closing range on Friday as well on a pickup in volume. So what I'd love to see is maybe an inside day with a strong closing range, and then maybe an inside day and up setup taking out that high. But this could 100% just kind of push through this kind of area here. Let me draw the horizontal line through this pivot as well as these pivot areas as well. So be aware that this can move pretty quickly here. We've got great earnings growth, sales growth, especially off the charts, and extremely strong estimates as well. 750% for 2022 and a further 185% in 2023, with estimate revisions being up. So this really catches my eye and tells me that there's something going on with this company, and we're just now kind of emerging from a potential base here up the right hand side of the institutional due diligence phase. So definitely a stock that's got my interest, especially because solar stocks have been holding up extremely well. FSLR is potentially the leader within this group. I think it is the leader. This is maybe a little bit of a secondary name, but still acting strong. And we'll go through EMPH as well later on in this video. So that's ARI. Moving on, we've got HRMY. Let's go back to a daily chart here. It's pushed up a little bit late last week, so I'd love to see, one more contraction and then kind of use that as a pivot, managing risk at that swing low. Let that 21 EMA kind of catch up a little bit. You could also use that as your stop loss, but I'm basically watching for some type of entry tactic here to get into this leader that's trending nicely above the 21 EMA. We just kind of broke out through this base, and it's just kind of acting well. And once again, within a potential leadership group, Biotech has been extremely strong and nice EPS estimates for 2022. Not so much for 2023, although estimate revisions are up, and we've got nice quarterly numbers as well. And we're in a nice uptrend above rising 21, 50, and 200 SMA. RS rating is a very good 98. Moving on, we've got Wingstop, which is another that's kind of had this gap up consolidation, and we had a nice push out here on this past Wednesday, and now we're kind of flagging here in the short term. So I want to see basically a push through this flag on volume. We've got lower volume during this flagging process, and going over to a 60-minute chart, you can see that you basically got to pivot right at this area just above 165. So we'll see if we can get a push out here, but potentially, we consolidate a little bit more. That would be completely fine, but watch for a big volume move. You can manage risk right at the lows of this range. So that is Wingstop. Going back to a daily, let's move on to Dexcom. Very similar. We had a nice earnings gap up consolidation. We pushed up late last week, and now we're forming a little bit of a consolidation here. And going over to the 60-minute chart, you can see that you've got a pivot right at 120, but it's just starting to push off this kind of reversal day low. Nice push on Friday, and you can manage risk maybe right here as well. Maybe we get a pullback, push back up, manage this as a pivot, manage your risk right here to get a little bit of a tighter entry, and manage your risk just a little bit more closely. So that is Dexcom, definitely a stock to watch. Pod is also on this list, which is kind of its sister stock, which is also acting quite well. Next up, we've got ON, and you can see it's a little bit choppy here, but going over to a weekly chart, this is a potential 3 weeks tight as of this moment. So I'd love to see it push from this consolidation and give us a nice entry here. Maybe it tightens up a little bit on the daily chart beforehand, forms a pivot, then you can kind of manage risk at that prior swing low, basically. Let that 21 EMA catch up to price as well. Use that as your stop loss if you'd like to give it a little bit more room, decrease your position size, keep risk in check. But other than that, it's acting quite well, right near all-time highs, great numbers as well, really strong estimates for 2022. GFS kind of within that same area, also had a kind of a pullback last week. We're pulling back into this prior pivot here, 61.14. So far, we've had kind of 2 supporting candles off of that level. So I'd love to see maybe, one tight day and then a push up off here and get back above that 21 EMA, which is right here as of this moment, and start to move back towards, these higher pivots right here. But a nice longer term base here, really strong numbers in terms of quarterly numbers. And you can see it's supposed to be a breakout year in 2022. A little bit of a decrease in 2023, but still pretty darn good. And bringing out the fund ownership, you can see a nice increase overall in that as well. So GFS, definitely a name on my radar, even though it has pulled back, significantly last week, even as the market, increased. So we'll have to see whether this can really turn into a leader or if it's just going to kind of stagnate, and you should focus on other names. Moving on, we've got EMPH, and this is another solar name that finally broke out last week. So what I'm watching for now is maybe an inside day and up setup or some type of entry tactic after the breakout has already occurred. Maybe we get a short-term flag here and then it kind of reconfirms higher. You can manage risk right at that low of the day. That would be ideal. But it's great we finally saw this breakout because it was getting a little bit kind of too tight for too long, very choppy here at the pivot. Frustrated a lot of people I know, but we had a nice breakout finally, and we're above that 21 EMA, 50 SMA, and 200 SMA after we formed this base, and solar has been a leadership group. Looking at the 60-minute chart, this was an oops reversal on Friday where we had a open below the prior day's low, push through that strongly. This would have been an excellent entry point as well, and you could even have bought it here or through the standard pivot, and it held it really well. So I'd love to see a continuation or just a constructive pullback on a short-term time frame, reconfirmation higher, and just kind of keep doing that. Short-term flags pushing out, short-term flags pushing out, higher highs and higher lows. That would be ideal, but definitely a name to have on your radar along with the other solar stocks, FSLR in particular. And you can see the RS rating is a 98. You've got great quarterly numbers here and great estimates as well, and a nice increase in fund ownership over the past 2 years. SANM, also another one which had a nice earnings gap up consolidation, pushed up here on this Thursday, but still kind of just going sideways on a 60-minute chart. You can see you've got a short-term flag right here, or even a horizontal level around 68 or so. And you could have also entered through this kind of range break here earlier in the week. That would have been on Wednesday, but definitely a name to have on your radar. This definitely has a lot of potential. We'll have to see whether it can kind of reconfirm higher, maybe a little bit stretched from the 50 SMA. So keep that in mind. But earnings gaps often get like that. So we'll have to see if it can kind of reconfirm higher. I like the pickup in volume on these constructive days. Axon has a similar look, nice earnings gap up, pulled back into the 21 EMA, a nice outside day here on Thursday, and also a nice strong day on Friday. So you're basically watching for maybe a tight inside day, a tight day overall, reconfirmation higher, breaking through this pivot, or just kind of this area right here. So that is Axon. Moving on, we've got Amgen, which is flagging out here, compressing against that 21 EMA. Nice tight day on Friday. So we'll have to see if this is actionable Monday. It definitely could be breaking through that high as well as the DTL. And I like how this consolidation is on a decline in volume. Moving on, we've got CHX, another one which had a nice earnings gap up, moved up strongly, pulled back into the 21 EMA, and now is kind of basing out. I'd love to see maybe a few more days of consolidation against that 21 EMA, and then a pop up here towards the top of this mini consolidation. So that is CHX within the oil and gas space, but really nice quarterly numbers as well as estimates for next year. Moving on, we've got CELH, which is pushing up off the lows of the space here, still under just barely that prior pivot. Didn't quite close above it here on this day, but I'd love to see, a handle form, some type of short-term consolidation, let that 21 EMA kind of catch up to price, and then buy that reconfirmation higher, managing risk right at that swing low. It was incredibly choppy back in this area and even in here until these past few days. So definitely a stock I'm wanting to get in, and we'll have to see if it lets me. But overall, really great numbers, great estimates as well, and really nice fund ownership. You can see 4 high-quality funds in here. And going over to the 60-minute time frame, you can see where we had a very strong push off these lows. Short-term flags, still pretty choppy, but potentially actionable here as well. Going back to the daily chart, you can see that the group has definitely improved, and going over to the weekly, you can see a few with pretty good RS ratings. So that's definitely a plus that the group now is kind of supporting this. Back in this area or so, it was kind of the only name within that group that was acting well. And now we've got a little bit more support. You can see the strong growth numbers here as well. So that is CELH. Moving on, we've got POD, which is very similar to Dexcom, forming the short-term flag. Want to see it push through that. Great quarterly numbers and great estimates, really strong estimates for 2023. AMKR, push off these lows here. If we go to a weekly chart, you can see it's flagging right below all-time highs and looks really constructive on that weekly chart, pulling back into the moving average. And going back to a daily, you can see nice consolidation. Maybe it needs one more week, but you can definitely look to buy a short-term flag here. Maybe it pushes through, retest that, confirms up again, but nice upside reversal on Friday. You could buy it through this high. And going to a short-term time frame, you can once again see that short-term flag. You've got pivots right near 28, and you definitely want to see it push through on volume, and ideally it goes all the way through the 29 pivot as well. So that is AMKR, and here we've got FSLR, which isn't really viable as of this moment. I love to see a base once again. I'll let that 21 EMA kind of catch up to price, let that 50 SMA catch up to price, and then have it reconfirm higher. But it's just a name to watch because I think it's the leader within the solar space. It's already pushed out of its base and is acting very, very well. TH, nice push here on enormous volume. Then it had longer term consolidation, base, and now it's pushing up the right-hand side. You've got pivots obviously right near 15.67, but I'd ideally like to see, pull back on lighter volume into that 21 EMA area, and then a reconfirmation higher, managing risk right at that swing low or the moving average. AMLX, a recent IPO within the biotech space. Keep in mind with biotechs, there's a little bit more risk there, but it's acting well, and I'd love to see a low volume pullback into that 21 EMA and then reconfirmation higher and a breakthrough that 40 level. SGML, nice push here, great relative strength. Look at that RS line back here, and now it's forming a little bit of a base. Now on the left-hand side of this base, these type of bars do give me a little bit of pause. It wasn't able to break out here or here, and then this bar kind of breaks all these lows on a pickup in volume. So this base might need to base out substantially more, but I think it is a name worth having on your radar just because it rallied so strongly from 17 to 40, and you are seeing it push up the right hand side, and it's forming a little bit of a pivot here, but it may be a little bit early. So that's kind of my thought process when I look at this chart, and you don't really have any fundamental numbers here. But it is in the mining space, and it's looking at lithium, which has been a very strong theme going on this year. So that's pretty much it for this week's focus list. Let me know your thoughts on these names down below in the comment section. Also, let me know any names that you're looking at that aren't on here. I'd love to see what you guys are watching. And with that, best of luck next week, and I'll see you guys in future videos. Take care.